boys and girls, today we're going to talk about Claude Monet. Monet was a very famous painter from France. Not only was Monet famous for being a painter, but he's also famous for having his house that was turned into a garden and a museum for anybody to come and view and take a walk around his beautiful property. Monet had lots of greenhouses on his property, and he also had lots and lots of flower gardens, and he had a very large pond on his property where he had lots of water lilies, and he had a beautiful bridge that's very famous, and it's also in a lot of his paintings. Which brings us to our last project, a water lily sculpture. Our learning goal for this project is a sculpture, which means we're going to be producing a work of art through sculpture that utilizes form and space. Remember, form is something that's three-dimensional, not something that's flat, so we're creating something that you can hold in your hand. Our learning targets for this project are I can use space in my art, because we're going to be using all of the space around our project. I can see art all around me. We're going to be able to look outside and also identify things that you may be able to find in a garden like Monet did. And I can create sculptures because we're going to be creating something, like I said, 3D that you can hold in your hand. There are two sets of materials for this project. You can either choose to do option 1, which requires scissors, tin foil, markers. I have those as optional, water and salt also as optional, because that's just to create a nice textural background for our water lily to sit on. And then there's option 2. You could use Play-Doh if you have it. And again, I put markers, water, and salt because again, I'm going to show you a very special technique to create a nice background for our water lily to sit on. You will have access to both of these directions, whether you choose the option 1 or you chose option 2. I will have directions on how to create your water lily using the materials that I've told you about on the last slide, and you'll have the option to either look at these directions and print them or view them on the computer or follow along with the video next. All right, let's get started. All right, boys and girls, now you're ready for option 1, which is creating a water lily using a piece of rectangular tin foil. All right, so this is just regular aluminum foil that you probably have around your house. So you're gonna need a long rectangular piece of foil to start. And what I'm gonna have you do is you are going to create we're going to cut, and if you don't have scissors, you could tear part of your aluminum foil. But what you're going to do is you're going to create 1, 2, 3, and 4 lines that we're going to cut. So if you want to use a pencil or a marker to draw your lines first before you cut them, you can, but you're going to need 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you're going to take your scissors, or if you don't have scissors, you could rip along those lines, and I want you to cut or rip. And you're not ripping the whole way up the paper. See how I stopped? I left a nice, about an inch space. So I left a nice space at the top so that I wouldn't go all the way to the top. We don't want to cut them all the way off. We want to keep them kind of attached. All right, so now we have our lines cut or torn, and we're ready to start. So for each section, we're gonna start at one of them. We're going to fold them, and then we're gonna crinkle them just a little. So again, I'll show you what I've done. Because we're gonna do it to all of these. So we're gonna get a lot of practice. So what you're gonna do is, what I do is I kind of fold it a little, and then I fold the other part just a little, and then I crinkle just a bit. So again, we fold towards the top to the center, crinkle just a bit. We're gonna do it again over here, crinkle just a bit. So what we're kind of creating is, it almost looks like we're creating some triangles on here, some triangular shapes, which we really are actually. So you should have, when you're finished, 5 triangular shapes. And right now, if you turn it sideways, it looks like a crown. So if it looks like a crown, you did it right. But we're going to fold, and I don't want you to cut these out because we don't want them to be too rough, because then we may cut ourselves, and we don't want to cut ourselves. So we just bunch them towards the side. All right, so once you've bunched them, we're going to start at the bottom. So now we're going to put it like it's a crown. And I want you to, we're going to just take this piece of foil and we're going to fold it, press it down just a little, and we're just giving it some extra reinforcement so it doesn't break, because we don't want it to rip. Tin foil is flimsy, so be very careful. You may need to practice it a couple times. So what you've done now is we have created this part of the bottom, because we want this bottom again to be nice and sturdy. So it's now sturdy. All right, now we're ready to start creating our lily. So what you're going to do now is you're going to turn it, and we're going to go from the bottom part, and we're going to very nice and carefully, we're going to start to roll it. So we're rolling it carefully, carefully rolling. I'm not pushing it too hard, carefully rolling it. And we're going to take each one of our petals, and we're going to now open up our lily. So I want you to open your lily, opening your lily, open your lily. You could open it the whole way. There we go. And we have now created a tin foil lily flower. So now, if you would like, we've created our tin foil lily. Now, if you want, you could take another piece of foil, and let's see, we would need a square, more of a square shape than a rectangle. So you could take a square shape of another piece of aluminum foil, and I'm going to show you how to create a lily pad. So now we just cut it towards the center. So just a little, see how I have it just a little, it's like it has legs. And we're going to fold these two pieces out. Okay, and now we're just going to kind of fold the side, and maybe we're going to crunch these two, because lily pads have kind of a crease to them. And now we have a lily pad for our water lily to sit on, if we so choose. And then you can just start to move your aluminum foil around to make it however kind of shape that you want. And there's our option one. We have a lily pad and we have a lily. All right, stay tuned for option number 2, which I'm going to show you how to create a lily using Play-Doh. All right, there we go. There's the first one. All right, boys and girls, now I'm going to show you option number 2, which is using Play-Doh to create your water lily on your water lily pad. All right, so I have some green Play-Doh and I have some pink. You can use any color that you want to for your water lily. Primarily they're like pinks and blues, or I'm sorry, pinks and purples and sometimes white. So in this case, I'm going to use pink and I'm going to use green for my lily pad. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is the lily pad. So I want you to get a little piece. So you're going to open up your Play-Doh. You don't need to use the whole thing, the whole entire thing of Play-Doh inside your cup. You just really need a little bit. All right, so I took out a nice little piece and I'm gonna roll it. So our first step is rolling it into a sphere. So we have a sphere, a nice sphere shape. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take it in your hand, you're gonna flatten it like a pancake. And I don't want you to press it onto the table, because if you do that, it may stick to the table. So what I like to do is just press it in your hand. Maybe go back and forth a couple times so that it gets a nice flat shape. All right. And then what you're going to do is we're going to make a nice little slice right here. And you could use your fingers to separate it. You could use a dull pencil to separate it. You could use scissors to separate it. I'm just going to go ahead and use my fingers. But what I want to do is we want to break it a little so that we can create this nice little almost C shape of a nice lily pad. All right, so we have our first step, which is our lily pad, and it is now complete. So now we're going to set that aside, because now we're going to create our water lily to sit on side. So now get your other color, and in this case I'm going to use pink. And we're gonna need 5 pieces of Play-Doh because we're gonna have 5 petals to our water lily. All right, so I'm gonna take this piece and I'm gonna break it into 5 pieces. So I have 1 piece, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 pieces. All right, so now I'm gonna take all 5 of these pieces, and with each one, I'm going to roll it into a sphere shape. And a sphere is the 3-dimensional form of a circle. So a circle would be flat on our paper, and a sphere is something that you could hold in your hand. And we can hold these spheres in our hand. And again, we're gonna create 5 spheres using all of these 5 pieces of Play-Doh that we just got out. Okay, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, so what I want you to do now with each one of these is you're gonna, again, take it in your hand, and just like we did with the lily pad, we're not gonna push it on the ground, or I'm sorry, we're not gonna push it on the table, push it on the paper, because we don't want it to stick, so we're gonna use it in our hand, and we're gonna smash it just a bit on both sides. So let's give it a couple little pats so that it's flatter. Set it aside. Same thing with the next one, smash a little, so it's nice and flat. You don't want to make it too flat, but we do want to have it flatter. We don't want it to be a complete circle, so it does need to look a bit smashed. So smash a little in your hand, set it aside, smash again, set it aside. All right, so now we have our 5 smashed spheres. So now I want you to take each one, and I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do this. We want to create a point so that they kind of look like raindrops. So you can take both of your fingers, your thumb and your finger, and if you hold the side of your circle and you smash it just a little, it will pull it to a point. So there's one way that you could create those. The other way that you could create them is if you were to pull it. So if you hold and you pull, you could pull it to a point. Whichever way you feel more comfortable with, we just want to make sure that this side is circular and this side comes to a point. And it looks like we're creating raindrops, and really we're creating the petals to our water lily. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 raindrops or petals to our water lily. So now we're going to take all of these 5 pieces and we're going to set them side by side next to each other. And we're going to set them a little on top of each other. So I want you to set one down. This one's going to go, so if we set one down, put this one a little over top. So then we take the next one and we go a little over top of that one. Push it just a little so it sticks. Next to it so it sticks. Next to it so it sticks. So now let's give them 5 little pushes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Give an extra one to the end. All right, so now we're going to take all of these and we're going to, they should all be attached. And we're going to make it into a line this way. And we're going to take one side and we are just going to start to curl it up, holding it together. Curl, 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 hold it, curl it up. It should all stick with your Play-Doh. And then you're going to take your fingers and you're going to separate each one of your petals just a little so that we have a nice water lily. And then you can set it on top of your lily pad. And now we have a beautiful water lily. All right, so now if you'd like to create some water, so like a little part of a pond where your water lily could sit on, I'm going to show you a way to do that using watercolor paints, water, and salt. If you'd like to use markers, you could use markers instead of the paint. Then you would just color some of the parts of your paper using a marker, use water to make it bleed all around, and then throw the salt on at the end. But I'm going to show you how to do it using blue watercolor paint. So it would just be regular watercolor paint, and you're going to take your paintbrush, dip it in water. We need lots of water for this, always using lots of water when we do our paintings. and you're going to go across your paper. So what you're gonna do is fill your paper. So I'm just taking my paper and I am filling it. And this is very, very simple. Just gonna fill my paper. Now I wanna make sure that my paper is nice and wet the whole time. So once I have all of the color on my paper, I'm gonna take some just water on my brush, and I'm gonna give it one more rinse the whole way across my paper. I want this paper to be nice and wet so that the salt does a really good job. All right, so now we're gonna take some regular salt and you're gonna sprinkle it all along your paper. And it's already starting to pop, and we're gonna give it a little time. Once it's completely dry, we're gonna see what it looks like, and then you can set your water lily on top.